Playing violent video games like Doom, Battlefield, and Soul Calibur can have an increase on a person's aggressive thoughts, feelings, and behavior in actual life. According to 2 studies done by the American Psychology Association, the APA Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, violent video games may be more harmful than violent television and movies because video games are interactive. They're very gruesome and require the player to face the aggressor, making it personal. Acting out repetitive motions of shooting an enemy or slaying down your zombie is causing the amount of aggression that we see. From playing these games, children are starting to separate themselves from reality. According to a survey done by the Huffington Post, 90% of children 12 to 7 in the U.S. play a form of video game. It's not hard to see how kids are becoming desensitized when so many are spending so much time on TV and computers playing these games. The amount of widespread video game dependency needs to be controlled. When a child plays a violent video game, it can be beneficial. Dr. Anderson from the APA found that in the short run, it actually appears that it can affect the aggression in a positive way because it helps you let it out instead of keeping it in. The longer-term effects can cause the player to take the methods in the violent video games and actually use them out when they are faced in a conflict in real life. In the New York study, Craig A. Anderson, Ph.D. of Iowa State University in Ames, and his colleagues looked at how children and teens' video game habits at one point in time related to their behavior 3 to 6 months later. The study included 3 groups: 181 Japanese children ages from 12 to 15, 1,050 Japanese students ages 13 to 18, and 364 U.S. kids ages 9 to 12. The U.S. children listed their 3 favorite games and how often they played them. In the younger Japanese group, the researchers looked at how often the children played aggressive violent video games such as first-person shooters, fighting action, adventure, and among others. In the older group, they gauged the violence in the kids' favorite game genres and at the time they spent playing them each week. Japanese children rated their own behavior in terms of physical aggression, such as hitting, kicking, getting in fights at school. The U.S. children rated themselves as well, but the researchers took into account the reports from their peers and teachers as well. In every group, children who were exposed to more video game violence did become more aggressive over time than their peers who did not. This was true even after the researchers took into account how aggressive they were to begin with, a strong predictor that violent video games could have a future of bad behavior. Not only is aggression an issue, desensitization is another factor as well. In a study that Dr. Anderson also conducted, 13 late adolescent male gamers played a game while undergoing fMRI scans, where they scan the waves in your brain. The game Unreal Tournament can be set either to include violent actions or be set to not to. The most interesting preliminary findings appear to be the contrast between gamers who wanted to have the violence and those who didn't. They later show that the RACC activity, which is the suggestion emotional response, during the violent episodes, as expected, they interpreted that this meant that while people are not used to seeing violent video games, they had an emotional response to it. However, those who regularly play video games did not simply lack an emotion, they were purposely suppressing it. These players may have become desensitized to the violence in the video games shown by their RACC activity. I realize that these studies are overwhelming. We don't want our children to be warriors acting out their favorite characters in video games violently. When you go to buy your child a new game that they want, make sure you know enough about the game as well. Read up on the game and see if it's fit for your child. A website that all parents should use is www.commonsense.org. It has ratings on almost every game, views, and blogs to post from other parents and other people and what they thought of the game. After you have decided whether this video game is appropriate for your child or not, you still need to be watching them and seeing if this game is really working with them. It's at their right age level and if they're understanding it. Most kids play almost 12 hours of video games a week, sometimes even up to 30 hours, according to the CNN Health. That's as much as a part-time job. And make sure that your child is reacting right to this this many hours of gaming. Some of them obviously will know how much is enough, and if they don't, that's where the parents need to step in and understand that they need to tell their child, it's too much, they don't need to be playing games that often. Not all video games are bad, obviously. Everyone likes Wii Sports, all those sports games, those are good as well. But violent video games, rated M for mature, something that is not only for kids, but even adults and early 20s should be worried about. No matter what the age, someone can become desensitized to this. Try to understand how video games are affecting your children and notice the long-term effects and if they're causing aggression or not. Obviously, it's hard for parents to watch their children all the time. You can't have your eyes on them every second of every day. But it's something to start at a young age so that they're understanding what's right and wrong, what's fake and reality. If you start this at a young age, you will hopefully overcome the dependency that our growing nation is on violent video games.